So we are starting objective 4.3, and today we will be solving quadratic equations. Specifically, we're going to be using the square root method today. Okay, so going back to when we learned our vocabulary for polynomials, a quadratic is a polynomial with the highest exponent or highest degree of 2. So first, let's talk about a quadratic function. When a quadratic function is graphed, it makes a shape like this. This is called a parabola. And in some cases, a quadratic function will cross the x-axis more than once, or twice, to be specific. So if my, let's see, what color do I want to use this for this? If my y-axis is here and my x-axis is here, then this parabola will cross the x-axis twice. So when we're solving quadratic equations, we may get two answers. We'll get x equals that point and x equals that point. So keep that in mind. When we're solving quadratics, you may get two answers. In fact, often you will get two answers, especially in this objective that we'll be practicing. So let's talk about the square root method. Square roots are the number multiplied by itself to produce a given product. So, for example, 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9. So the square root of 9 is 3. Now, something you may not have heard about or thought about before is that a positive number always has two square roots. So yes, the square root of 9 is 3, but also the square root of 9 is negative 3, because negative 3 times negative 3 is also positive 9. So when we are writing answers, you may see this symbol. That means positive and negative. So, for example, 49. The square root of 49 is 7 times 7, but it's also negative 7 times negative 7. The square root of 16 is 4 times 4 and negative 4 times negative 4. So what about the square root of x squared? The square root of x squared is x times x and negative x times negative x. So the type of equation that can be solved by the square root method is one with no bx term. We'll say maybe. So remember, a standard form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So we are talking specifically about an equation that doesn't have a term here. It's just ax squared plus c equals 0. Those are the types of equations we will use this method for. All right, so here are the steps. Isolate x squared. Using inverse operations. Then you're going to take the square root of both sides. Now, if you are using one of my classroom calculators, you're going to push the green second button in the top left corner, and then you're going to push the x squared button that has a little square root in green above it. That will give you the square root symbol, and you can type in whatever number and push enter, and you will get the square root of that number. Just remember, because you can't put this one in your calculator, that the square root of x squared is x. So you're going to write both answers in curly brackets. They look like, oops, let me try that again. They look like that. And you're going to write them least to greatest. So let's look at some examples. X squared plus 7 equals 88. So I need to get x squared by itself. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides of the equal sign. And now I have x squared equals 81. Now I can take the square root of x squared, which I know is x, and take the square root of 89, which is positive and negative 9. So to write this as my solution set, I'm going to write negative 9, positive 9 in the brackets. Example 2, 6x squared equals 54. So in order to get x squared by itself, I need to divide by 6. So now I have x squared equals 9. Take the square root of x squared, which is x, and the square root of 9, which is positive and negative 3. So the solution is negative 3, 3. Remember, those are two solutions, x equals negative 3 and x equals 3. Okay, 9x squared plus 4 equals 580. So first I will subtract 4. So now I have 9x squared equals 576. Then I need to divide by 9. So now x squared equals 64. Take the square root of both sides. X equals, the square root of 64 is positive and negative 8. So x equals negative 8, x equals positive 8. Let's look at one where there's parentheses in the equation. Okay, if there's parentheses in the equation and the x squared is on the inside of the parentheses, I'm going to distribute first. So let's distribute the 4. Because we're using order of operations, I need to do the parentheses first. So now I have 4x squared minus 3 plus 6 equals 10. Now I have like terms I can combine. So 4x squared, add these together, and I have plus 3, equals 10. Subtract 3. Four x squared equals 7. Oh my gosh, I really messed this up, didn't I? I apologize. Hopefully you're writing in pencil, because 4 times negative 3 is not negative 3. So this needs to be negative 12. So sorry about that. Okay, now when we combine these, we have 4x squared equals negative 6. Or no, sorry, 4x squared minus 6 equals 10. Now we can add 6. Okay, this is looking better now. 4x squared equals 16. Divide by 4. And now we have x squared equals 4. And now that x squared is by itself, I can take the square root. Square root of x squared is x, equals positive and negative 2. So my solution is negative 2, 2. Okay, a few more examples here. Just 2 more. Example 5. X minus 7 squared equals 36. Okay, now we have the squared on the outside of the parentheses. So notice how that's different from the parentheses in number 4. In number 4, the x squared was inside the parentheses. Now the squared, the exponent of 2, is on the outside of the parentheses. When I see that, I can take the square root of x minus 7 squared. So remember that x minus 7 squared is x minus 7 times x minus 7. So that means that the square root of x minus 7 squared is just x minus 7. because it's the same thing multiplied twice. Okay, x minus 7 equals 36. No, it's not. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm getting ahead of myself here. We have to take the square root of the other side. Okay, the square root of 36 is positive and negative 6. Now, this says that x minus 7 equals negative 6 and x minus 7 equals positive 6. So I have to solve it two ways. So I'm going to solve it where x minus 7 equals negative 6. And I'm also going to solve for x minus 7 equals 6. So add 7 and x equals 1. On the other side, if I add 7, x would equal 13. So my solution for this equation is 1 and 13. Okay, last example. 2 times x plus 9 squared equals 200. Okay, so again, we see this one is like example 5 where the exponent is on the outside of the parentheses. So I'm not going to distribute like we did in number 4. Number 4 was different because x squared was inside the parentheses. Okay, so I need to get the parentheses squared by itself. So I'm going to divide by 2. Now I have x plus 9 squared equals 100. Now I can take the square root. The square root of x plus 9 squared is x plus 9. And the square root of 100 is positive and negative 10. So solve it two ways. X plus 9 equals negative 10. And x plus 9 equals positive 10. Subtract 9, and x equals negative 19. And subtract 9 on the other equation, and x equals 1. So my solution is negative 19, 1. Remember, these need to be least to greatest. So negative 19 on the left and 1 on the right. All right, you will be practicing this today. Go back and watch these examples again if you need to. You can always come back to the video if you have questions. You can come and ask me, but that's what you'll be doing today.